Hold up, did she just ask her to be her maid? Welcome to my channel. So this video is going to be about season 1, episode 1 of Little Fires Everywhere, titled The Spark. It'll be a recap mixed in with some analysis, then predictions as to where I think the show could be going. And oh yes, there will be spoilers, but before I get started, thank you for watching. I do release new videos weekly, so if you like TV shows about murder, mysteries, and suspense thrillers, hit subscribe and that thumbs up to see more videos like this one. I also take my top 3 comments from my last video and then feature them at the end of this one here. So be sure to stick around for that. Now that we got the pleasantries out of the way, let's talk about Little Fires Everywhere. So this was a show that won your vote, and I've heard really good things, and let me tell you, this series premiere did not disappoint. I'm only going to be watching 1 episode per week, and it was hard not to hit next episode. Anyway, the episode starts off with Elena, that's Reese Witherspoon, and her family watching as their beautiful home in a peaceful suburban neighborhood is engulfed in flames. As the authorities are trying to figure out the cause, it's revealed that the fire was started intentionally because someone started little fires everywhere, and Elena's daughter Izzy is MIA and the prime suspect, which right off the back I'm gonna say, I don't think she started this fire. So from there, we flash back 4 months prior to August 1997, and yeah! This show takes place in the 90s, so prepare for flip phones, talking free after 9 p.m. and no text messaging. Anyway, Elena is your stereotypical suburban wife slash mom, and I'm not gonna lie, if you've seen Big Little Lies, it gave me the same vibe, just for the 90s. So Elena is a journalist, and on the way to work, she sees a car sitting in the parking lot that looks like someone is living out of it. And in true Karen fashion, she calls the cops on it. Way to go, Karen. Way to go. So this is how we meet Mia, played by Kerry Washington, DC, and her daughter Pearl, who's not a whale. Now, Mia just moved to town, and that's Shaker Heights, Ohio, which Elena is very proud of this, so she's gonna remind you where they are about every 5 minutes. Anyway, we see that Mia isn't necessarily struggling, but she definitely lives a much less glamorous life than Elena, and there are a ton of parallels like this between Mia and Elena. So this is something I'll get into more a little bit later on, but this is something I really like about their dynamic. Now, in the biggest coincidence possible, Elena happens to own a property Mia is interested in renting. So this is when we find out Mia is an artist. Photography, textiles, and mixed media stuff she does according to Mia herself. She also doesn't stay in one town for long because being offered a 1-year lease is a problem. Aside from that, being an artist isn't that lucrative of a career because this would be the first time Pearl, Mia's daughter, would be having her own room. There's actually a lot of really good details here, and I really like how they pulled off this exposition. Anyway, after turning down the rental, Elena notices Mia getting into the same car she called the cops on earlier, and then she offers the rental to Mia on the spot, without checking references, and I'm assuming with a month-to-month lease to accommodate Mia's request. Now, this is the first thing that bugged me just a teensy little bit. Well, aside from calling the cops on the car, but there's a fine line between doing something out of the kindness of your heart and then doing it because you want to be the person that rented to that poor, struggling black family. Okay, so I may be jumping to conclusions, but this is littered throughout the rest of the episode. I think Elena means well, but it comes off a bit savior-ish? Side note, I like the relationship Mia has with her daughter. It's really sweet. We do get another side of it later, and it makes me think that there's more to Pearl's birth, but I'll discuss that a little bit later. Okay, so now we get some more of Elena's home life. Meet her husband Bill, which is the dude from Dawson's Creek, and discover that Elena is the type of person that plans sex. Wednesdays and Saturdays, in case anyone's wondering, which, I mean, if you're gonna plan sex, those are actually 2 really good days to choose. Real quick, I mentioned Elena's daughter Izzy, but she also has a son named Trip, which I see as the popular jock in high school, a daughter named Lexi, who's definitely the popular cheerleader girl, and then you have Moody. He's kind of a unique kid. Then Izzy is the black sheep, like literally the polar opposite of Elena, and they bump heads. Also, real quick, Mia has a nightmare about being on a subway or something. There's some dude staring at her, then it crashes. I really don't know. Now, moving on, Moody, Elena's youngest son, and Pearl meet. He helps Mia and Pearl move in, and then he and Pearl hit it off. In the process, we find out Mia moves so much because she finds a new subject, i.e. a town, finishes the series, and then moves on. From here, we see Elena talking to one of her friends, and she gets major kudos for being such an amazing woman because she rented a home to a woman who's practically homeless. And this is what I was saying earlier. When you claim to be selfless just to have someone talk about it, kind of defeats the purpose. Okay, so now Izzy sets part of her hair on fire because she's obviously crying out for attention. After freaking out about it, Elena takes her to the salon and remember salons? And that's when she runs into Mia. She tries to bond with Mia, but she's just so overbearing and just trying so hard. So Elena finds out that Mia's working the late shift at the Lucky Palace or something and decides to offer her a job. You know, cleaning up around her house and such. And I'm like, hold on, did she just ask her to be her maid? So Elena tries to backpedal, saying it's a house manager position or whatever, and she isn't aware of Moody and Pearl's new budding friendship. One aspect I loved here was when Elena asked Mia to do family portraits because, again, she's trying so damn hard to be open and helpful, but Mia doesn't like doing portraits because they give the client what they want to see, while Mia takes pictures to reflect what actually is. And I adore this. I do photography myself, and I have the exact same thought process. There's something so magical about capturing a moment in time versus a staged one. So Pearl ends up going to Moody's house, and it's just an entire way of living she's never seen. Like I mentioned earlier, there are so many parallels between Elena and Mia's family, and Pearl seeing this home symbolized, well, a home, a place where the kids have spent their entire lives. In fact, one of them would probably inherit the house after Elena and Bill grow old. Bill's the husband, if it hadn't already been burned down like we saw at the beginning. Anyway, I moved around a lot growing up, so this really resonated with me. Seeing a lived-in home was a strange concept to me growing up. Side note, Ricky Lake. LOL, the 90s. So Pearl decides to stay for dinner, and this is where we find a lot more parallels between Elena and Mia. As I mentioned, Elena is a sex on a Wednesday and Saturday only type of planner, and Mia's really a go with the flow, spontaneous type of person. Anyway, Pearl stays for dinner, and it's apparent that the family is really rough on Izzy, but they're also really rough on Moody, and this is why I'm not 100% sold on Izzy being the fire starter. Too obvious for my tastes. Oh, and Lexi, the oldest daughter, has the audacity to say Pearl is a shoo-in at any college. You know, because of the whole affirmative action thing. But it's fine, because her boyfriend is African American. Wowzers. Elena takes Pearl home afterwards, and they actually bond pretty well. Pearl also likes to write and wants to be a journalist, so I mean, it's kind of cool. But again, Elena's giving me this major savior vibe, and she's just trying to do too much. Like, being helpful is fine, and I know she means well, but no one's asking you, Elena. By the way, I forgot to mention that Moody wanted to take Pearl to some secret location, but she needed a bike to go, and she didn't have a bike, so he got her a bike. Or whatever. So they end up going to the Junkyard to check out Moody's little sanctuary. They chill, play some tunes, and then Pearl reads some of her poetry. Now, as someone who writes, letting someone read/listen to your work is wildly intimate. So I see this friendship progressing very quickly. One does not simply just read their poetry to someone they just met. Oh, and I also forgot to mention that Izzy is in a band, like a school one. And she has a performance, but instead of playing, she writes "Not Your Puppet" on her forehead to stick it to the man and be a rebel without a cause. But truthfully, I feel really bad for her. Like, she struggles making friends, she's different, she wants to be unique, and just wants the same sort of attention that her mother shows the rest of her kids. It's kind of sad. I still don't think she lit the house on fire though. Okay, so it turns out Pearl and Moody spent the entire day at the Junkyard and, you know, they get caught. This is revealed through Mia being followed by a police car. Now, Mia was low-key freaking out, and that could be because of the pretenses that come along with being black and law enforcement. Or Mia is hiding something, or maybe it's a mixture of the two. Anyway, Mia reprimands Pearl for getting in trouble, and wouldn't you know it, Elena chimes in as usual, saying, "It wasn't a big deal, blah, 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 blah. Mind your business, Elena." But Mia and Pearl get into an argument because Mia wants to move, Pearl wants to stay, and we see that Pearl isn't as gung-ho about this nomadic lifestyle as it seemed earlier. Meanwhile, Elena attempts to talk to Izzy after the whole band performance fiasco, but she doesn't. And this parallels Mia and Pearl after their argument. While Elena fails to reconcile with her daughter, Mia actually does. So, next day, Pearl returns the bike Moody gave her and ends up staying and hanging out with Trip and Lexi while they watch The Real World. The Real World San Diego was my shit. Anyway, Mia shows up and we get another parallel between the two leads of the show. Mia ends up bonding with Izzy, who happens to be in the front yard and doing art. And I love their interaction. We creatives need to support one another, and I love the support Mia gives Izzy. I feel like Izzy needs that. In fact, instead of being supportive, when Elena gets home and sees Izzy spray painting in the front yard, she has a fit. Aside from that, Mia meets with Elena, and the biggest twist I ever saw coming, she accepts the house manager offer. So these following episodes should be interesting, and I'm excited to see how this will affect their dynamic, but I also see it as a good opportunity for Izzy to be able to connect with someone. Alright, and if you haven't already put it together, on the way home, Mia tells Pearl that they're going to go get more paint and stay in Shaker Heights, and I never mentioned the whole paint thing earlier, did I? It's actually a really cool concept. Anytime they move, Pearl gets to paint one wall because they can get a free color sample and it's easier to paint over when they move. I love the symbolism behind just saying we're getting more paint and how that equates to them staying. Just really good writing, in my opinion. We also see that Mia made Pearl a bike when they get home, and it is the coolest thing ever. Okay, so in the meantime, Elena is finally doing those reference checks and calls one of Mia's past landlords. She gets the voicemail, but it's sexy Saturday time, so who cares? So Mia has another nightmare on the subway, but this time she's with a woman, and they seem pretty close. Then we cut to the same dude staring at her, and to me, it seems like she's running from something or someone. It would also tie into the whole thing about Mia getting paranoid when the cop was following her. Could this woman be an ex-lover? Is the random dude a detective? And like, what's she hiding? And I say this because in the following scene, the landlord calls Elena back, but he knows nothing about this Mia person. So she's clearly hiding something because she lied about that reference. Finally, we end on a scene of Izzy playing with fire. And that was the episode. And I've got to say, for a series premiere, this was a great episode. It got me hooked with its setup, and I'm committed to see how it develops and who actually started all those little fires everywhere. I also can't wait to see how everything develops with Mia working for Elena, because I see some major clashes happening there, especially with just finding out that the reference Mia provided was fake. I wonder if you're gonna see that fly. And again, I love the parallels between Elena and Mia, like raising kids in one place versus moving around, their careers, their relationship with their children, their views on life. It's all really good stuff, and I think they could both teach each other some shit about life. There's also a callback to that thing I mentioned about portrait photography. Elena is more the type of person, to me, that puts on a show. She wants everyone to see a perfect family versus Mia keeping it a little more real. Besides the whole lying about her past, what you see is what you get with her, but maybe that ties into a similarity. Mia is hiding something too, we just don't know what it is quite yet, but I have a feeling it has something to do with the law, or perhaps she's running from an abusive relationship and that man we keep seeing is an ex or Pearl's father. I really don't know. There's not much to go on yet, so I'm just excited to watch this next episode. And that's all I got so far. As the season continues, I'll have a little more to work with, but in the meantime, let's move on to my top 3 favorite comments from my last video. And since there is no last video, I'm just gonna pull them from the community post where you guys voted for this show. So this first one comes from Rahina May. It literally just says, OMG, I just started watching Little Fires Everywhere. It's so good. I would love to see you do that. And you are right. Based on the first episode, it is bomb. This next one is from Angie Free, and it just says, yes, Little Fires is winning. And I hope you're excited because it did win. And the last one comes from Beth Berry. Top 3, Handmaid's Tale, Little Fires Everywhere, Killing Eve. Even though Little Fires Everywhere is your number 2, we're gonna turn that into your number 1. That's all I'm saying. All right, thank you so much for watching, everyone. Comment below with your thoughts about this episode and let me know what other little things you found interesting about the setup for the season. I'm really excited to continue the show with you and looking forward to see how it develops. And if I missed anything, feel free to drop that down below too. If you enjoyed this recap/review, feel free to check out some of the other shows I do here. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up. It really helps me out. Then subscribe with a side of notification bell. Until next time, shine on, you crazy diamonds.